New at 5 tonight, federal workers in Chicago staged a protest over the looming government shutdown. Local lawmakers are weighing in on what could happen at midnight Eastern Time. ABC 7 political reporter Charles Thomas is joining us now with more. Charles?
Cheryl, Ron, the more accurate description of what could happen tomorrow is partial government shutdown. And the people who will notice it the most are the affected federal employees. Among the government workers who marched on Chicago's Federal Plaza was Deborah Monroe. She's worked for the government 31 years and doesn't think a shutdown would last more than a few days.
I think they'll do it for maybe a day or two. But once they see that the president is not going to give in, it'll be over.
The immediate furloughs would affect only non-essential workers, including 2,500 civilian employees at Naval Station Great Lakes. Several thousand more office workers at regional federal offices also would be laid off.
If they come in tomorrow, they'll have 4 hours to close up their business.
Well, first of all, it's going to cost millions of dollars to shut the government down nationwide. And then it's going to cost millions of dollars to get the government back up and running.
Active U.S. military, such as those at Great Lakes, would remain on the job. Also unaffected would be the federal courts, FBI, U.S. Marshal Service, federal prisons, and other law enforcement. At airports, the FAA's air traffic controllers will remain on duty, as well as TSA screeners. And postal workers will not be affected.
Midnight tonight, they'll be required, if the government shuts down, to gather the evidence they have, the perishable evidence, and fly back to Washington.
What we're proposing is to say, look, delay it for a year. It's clearly not ready for prime time.
Union officials said there were over 50,000 people on the U.S. government payroll in Illinois, including some 5,000 here in the Chicago region. But again, many of those are considered essential and will not be affected by the furloughs if they happen. And if we weren't talking about it so much, most people probably wouldn't notice the federal government had undergone this partial shutdown if and when it happens tomorrow.
Yeah, the federal workers who won't get checks for a while will notice.
Yes, and we would notice it as it continued, but not immediately.
All right. Thanks, Charles.